Hey guys, so today's video is going to be about betta fish. What else is new? Kind of got an obsession with them. But if you see me looking away to the side, it's because I have my notes on what I want to talk about. But today we're going to be talking about tank size, how they're tropical fish, their diet, health issues, maintenance, setting up tanks, divided and community tanks, because you can do community and divided tanks with bettas. It's not always recommended, but you can. So the first thing I want to talk about, which is one of the most controversial things with the betta fish, is its tank size. Some people say that you can keep it in a 1 gallon, half a gallon, all because they come from small patties in the wild. Now, the thing with those rice patties is they go on for miles, so they have a ton of surface area, and they're only really shallow and small sections of water during the dry seasons. The rest of the year, they're long, flowing, and they're not little small puddles. So, with that being said, the very minimum I would recommend to keep a betta in is a 2.5. Now keep in mind, the smaller the tank, the harder it is to cycle. I have a video on the nitrogen cycle. There are plenty of YouTubers on here who have a larger following who do have other videos on the nitrogen cycle that's probably more in depth than what I did. Because this is when I was just learning about it that I did a video on it, so I kind of scraped the surface of it, but they have really in-depth videos on it. A few of those channels is Solid Gold Aquatics, but she specializes in goldfish. Joey from the King of DIY mentions it in a few of his videos, and Corey from Aquarium Co-op has them. I'm not sure if Taylor Nicole Dean has one, but she does have some videos on fish. And she did a video called 5 Betta Myths, something along those lines, that's on her channel, so if you want you can go check that out too. But typically the smaller the tank, the harder it is to cycle. That's why I don't recommend small tanks for a beginner. For a beginner, I would recommend maybe a 10 or 20. But the bigger you go when you're a beginner, the easier it is going to be to cycle your tank, because there's more water dilution. It allows for mess ups. Things don't go sour really quick in smaller tanks. They are notorious for going down south really quickly because it's such a small space. There's not a lot of water dilution, and if you're a beginner and you don't really know what you're doing, it's going to be a lot harder to not kill your fish, because there's also fish in cycles and fishless cycles. It's mostly recommended, highly recommended in fact, that you do the fishless cycle instead of the fish in cycle. It causes less harm to the fish, it causes less shock, and there's less of a chance that your fish will wind up dead in a week. The maximum size tank I would recommend for a betta would be a 10 or 20 gallon. The right size tank, I would say anywhere from between 3 to 5 gallons. It's highly recommended that you keep them in a 5 gallon or bigger. If you keep your stuff right, 3 to 5 gallon I feel is okay, because like a 3 gallon is still enough room for them to swim around, but also it's probably a small enough tank that you can fit it on a desk, which is what most people do with bettas. As far as their tank needs, you're going to want a low flow filter. Now, if you have the time in your schedule where you can do water changes constantly, you don't necessarily need one, but it is recommended that you have one just because it adds aeration to the tank. It helps filter stuff out. Basic stuff that a filter does. Now, with the filter side, keep the carbon packs in for like the first few months of you doing your tank until you get your routine down on how you're gonna do the tank maintenance and such. Hold on, let me just fix this. But after that, you don't really need carbon filtration unless you're taking out smelly water. Now, your water should not be smelling like fish or anything nasty if you keep up with maintenance, or if you are taking out medications in the tank. Those are the only two reasons why I would see that you need carbon filtration. Otherwise, having carbon filtration is just a way for the companies to make money by you keeping on buying carbon packs every month or so. Now, how often you replace those carbon packs does depend on your bio load in your tank. But that's even more getting into the scientific side of it, which I'm just doing an overcast on that stuff. If you want me to do an in-depth video on that, I will at a later point. Another thing that the betta fish needs, they are tropical fish. If your house isn't like 90 degrees naturally and your water stays at around 80, because water always is a bit cooler than the actual room temperature in your house, you are going to want and need to get a heater. I personally, if you're just beginning, I like the Tetra heaters. I have one of those in my 5 gallons and one in my 10 gallon. Now for filters, I recommend getting the Tetra Whispers. I love them. They're quiet as long as you have, well, not as long as you have, as long as you don't have too much of a difference between where the outflow is on the filter and the water level of the tank. If you keep it about an inch, 2 inches, maybe even 3 inches, you can't hear the filter. The filter that you hear in my video probably is the one that I have on my 10 gallon. That is not a Tetra Whisper. I think it's an Aqua Clear, Aquaculture, one of those types of filters. But yeah, heaters are very important for bettas. Another thing is diet. Now, frozen food is way better than pellet food. Live food is even better as long as you know where you're getting it from. The only issue with some live food is you don't know if you're introducing parasites or anything bad to your fish. So unless you culture them yourself or you get them from someone who is very reputable, I wouldn't do live food. I would do frozen food or freeze-dried food. Now, if you do decide to use the pellets because you don't want to handle live or freeze-dried food, which I get, I forgot the name of the brand, but oh yeah, I remembered. Fluval Bug Bites. Those are really good pellets for bettas. Health issues. Bettas do have health issues. Now, if you keep your tank clean, pristine, everything's perfectly fine, you shouldn't run into these issues. One common issue is fin rot. Now, that could be from water parameters not being good. They have nipped fins. They snag their fins on decor and they get a bacterial infection. If they're really stressed, they become more susceptible to bacterial infections and fin rot, which fin rot is basically a bacterial infection on their fins that causes their fin to reduce in size. Now, if it gets so bad that it's really close to the body, it becomes, I believe it's called body rot, and that's not good. That means your fish probably is on its way out. But the way to help treat it, people use aquarium salt and salt baths. Usually people do these in smaller containers so they don't have to dose the whole tank. Now, when doing that, you want to dissolve the aquarium salt fully before you place the fish in, otherwise it will sting them. But that helps. Follow the directions on the packaging for the aquarium salt for doing treatments. Warm water, really warm water, and pristine water parameters in your tank are all key factors that will play in and help you make your betta have a good recovery from fin rot. Now the care and maintenance part of it, I do like 25% water changes every week. If I miss a week, I'll do a 50%, and that keeps my beta in good condition. If you're gonna keep fake plants in your tank, use silk plants. Don't use plastic. Plastic is notorious for causing fin issues and tearing at fins. Best thing to do for your tank is have live plants. Anubias, pretty common. Moss balls, also really good for your tank, and it helps you keep water better in a better condition, so you don't have to do as frequent water changes. It can also help with the cycling of your tank too. What else? Substrate. I use gravel, and I have a gravel vac that I clean the gravel out with. Other people have used sand. I know some use dirted tanks as if they're using them to grow live plants. People use that. The lighting in their tank should not be so bright because they don't like bright light. It will stress them out. And if you have any colorful lights that I know sometimes come with those small little tank kits, those stress them out and you will see them flare at it. Decor. Silk plants or live plants, places for them to hide, a beta leaf or log for them to rest on or in. Now, my beta doesn't like to go on a beta leaf or a beta log. He likes to lay on top of the heater. It doesn't burn him because there's like silicone rubber stuff on top of it that holds and protects the wires so it doesn't get exposed in the water. He likes to climb on top of that. Well, not climb on top, swim on top, but you guys get the gist of what I mean. Divided end community tanks is the last thing I want to talk about. Don't divide a small tank. Like if it's 4 gallons or lower, don't divide it. It's going to be way too small for them to swim in. If it's a 5 gallon, you can divide it into a half, so it's roughly about 3 gallons each. Roughly, not exactly, but roughly. That's fine. 10 gallon, you can divide it into 2, so it's 5 gallons for each beta, or you can do it into 3, which is again going to be roughly about 3 gallons each, or maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on how you divide it up. Now, community tanks. Males cannot be kept in community tanks if they're the splendid beta species. Wild betas can be kept in community tanks with males and females and stuff. I don't have much experience in those types of betas. I just know from splendid because that's what I've always owned, because they're the more flashy and more attractive to the eye. So I've always had male beta splendid betas. That's just my personal preference. Some people like female betas. Now, if you were to do a tank called a sorority tank with female betas, I wouldn't recommend anything less than a 20 gallon for those, because 4 betas and a 20 gallon, 5 gallons each, they each have enough swim room. Now, with that being said, make sure you have places to hide, a lot of plant decor, live plants, driftwood, stuff for them to each claim their own little territory in the tank, because that's what they do in the wild. Now, if a beta in the wild comes across another beta, they will fight, probably for that territory, but eventually one will just get fed up and swim. In community tanks, or in tanks in general, you put 2 male betas together, or female betas, in a tank with not enough room for all of them. They are going to fight until one of them dies, and it's going to be a mess. So I advise not doing them. Some people have success with doing female sororities. It's sort of like a 50-50 kind of chance with that sort of thing. For a beginner, I would not recommend it. If you're more experienced, like if you have like 4 or 5 years under your belt with aquariums and you want to try it, go ahead. You can do it. It's not really against the law to do that, but in my advice and in my opinion, I advise not doing beta sororities whatsoever or anything like that. Now, community tanks with betas. You can keep male and female betas not in the same tank, but if you have separate tanks for them, you can do community tanks. Now, the females can get away with more species of fish in their community tanks. The males, not so much. You kind of have to have dull fish or fast-moving fish in a male beta community tank, and a really big tank. Sorry, I'm jumbling up my words. My thoughts are coming through my mouth faster than I can say them. In the male community tanks, I wouldn't recommend a tank smaller than 10 gallons. 10 gallon, 1 beta, 4 or 5 neon tetras, or 5 minnows, not the flashy ones. I could see that being okay. Females can get away with a lot more in a community tank. You could do neon tetras, you could do minnows, what else? Glow Daniels, Zebra Daniels. The Glow Daniel and the Zebra Daniel, same thing, just one has color to it. Those would be good tank mates. You could do guppies, but I would do female guppies, not male guppies, just because the male guppies are more flamboyant looking and flashy and all that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to tell you guys. Just use this for like info and come to your own decision on what tank size is best for your beta, the care you want to put into it. They are a lot of care. It's not just throwing a fish in water and feeding it every day. There's a lot more stuff that goes into the care of fish and aquariums than a lot of people seem to realize. And that is when usually people wind up with dead fish in a month. Sometimes a week, sometimes the next day, sometimes a month. Sometimes they get lucky. They have them for a few months and a few years doing the absolute minimum, just doing water changes and feeding them every day. Now, everyone's situation is different. So if you live in a warmer tropical climate, you probably don't need a heater on your tank. You might have the opposite problem and you might need a chiller to keep the water cooler instead of being way too hot for your fish. That's okay. Everyone's setup and house is different. If your house is like 95 degrees or 85 degrees and you have a beta, you might not need a heater in your tank because the water in the room, my brain is fried if you couldn't tell. Water in the tank is only a few degrees cooler than the temperature around it. So with that being said, if it's 80 or 90 degrees in your house, you might not need the heater in your tank. But me personally, I always advise having a heater in the tank just in case the water temperature for some reason does drop really cold. That being said, you also want to keep the tank away from drafty areas, so under air vents, away from windows. Another reason why you don't want your tanks near windows most likely is because if sun comes in, it will cause algae to grow. Algae is good for your tank, but it can be an eyesore to some people. So keep that in mind when figuring out where you want to place your tank. Now you also want to pick a good stand. Now a 5-gallon can go on a pretty sturdy dresser as long as it's chock full with stuff and has weight that can support the tank. Anything bigger than a 5-gallon I wouldn't put on a dresser, personally. You want to make sure that your tank is level, because if the tank is not level, the water pressure and everything can make the glass and acrylic bow, and it'll start to cause stress on the tank, and it will cause it to crack. And even if it's a small crack, over time it can turn into a bigger crack, and you can risk the tank leaking. So make sure your tank is level and on a sturdy surface. I think that's all I actually have to say for you guys today. I may be doing more videos when I come up with more ideas and other things that I want to talk about. If you have any questions that you want me to talk about, leave them in a comment below. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification button, and I will try to be getting on a more frequent and steady uploading schedule, because I do go to school still. So when I can film, it's all up in the air. Like today I was able to film because I had a snow day. That's really it. So I will try and get more videos up more frequently, and maybe doing different sections where I'll do fish stuff, and then other people know I did makeup in the past on the channel, which I deleted those videos because I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep it aquariums. Now I'm like, I might do 2 parts of the channel where I'll have one part be aquariums, another part be makeup, and maybe even a 3rd part, which would be creepy stories and my paranormal experiences. So let me know if you guys would also be interested in that. But yeah, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll be back for another video soon. Have a great day.